it is official. I have elk blood on my hands.
Well, I don't even know what the hell that means. You killed an elk?
Yep, it was rifle season over Thanksgiving, and I was successful. And I have a couple 100 pounds of the healthiest meat in the world.
Good. Send me some. And so actually, Tom, my training partner, Tom's going to give me some, or so he says. I don't know if he's watching
Yeah,
this.
he has way more than I do, so you're just gonna have to rely on Tom for that.
I need some, dude. I need some free organic meat.
Yeah, I need someone to help me come cook it. So if anyone's really good at cooking, come help me cook it. Actually, shout out to Tyler. I think we met. I told you that I met a listener of Scale and Bale at the local archery shop this summer, and he took me fly fishing because he's a professional fly fisherman. Well, he also used to be an executive chef at a 5-star establishment. And
Right.
I was texting the other day, and I think I'm going over sometime this week, and he's gonna cook up the heart and some liver and some other. He's just gonna tell me what to bring and then teach me how to cook it because he really knows what he's doing apparently. So
I love it. I love it,
yeah.
dude. That's great. Good for you.
So if any other listeners want some elk meat, the only trade-off is that I get to eat what you cook and you get to eat what you cook, but I just have to see and understand how you cook it amazingly, and then I'll trade some elk meat.
You should invite over is our buddy Dave Kalina. I ran into him this week. He was here in Cleveland.
He's a good dude. I should invite him over. Does he know how to cook elk meat?
I don't know. Dave's an entrepreneur, dude. He knows how to do everything.
Yeah.
At a minimum, he'll bring you some O2. Come on.
Yeah. He's a good dude. We, for living as close to each other as we do, we certainly don't hang out enough, but I'll hit him up.
He and I went up to CrossFit Mentality and did Fight Gone Bad together. It was fun.
Nice.
Went and hung out with Scott Panchek. That was, if you've never had a chance to do a workout being coached by a games athlete, that's always a hoot,
Yeah, it's awesome. Scott and I actually, I mentioned we almost went into business together a little while ago. It ended up not working out just because I was way too busy to try to launch another business.
Right.
But yeah, he's a great guy. And and I know right when we were in the middle of it, he had that, the injury scandal thing where they didn't trim the ropes and all that stuff. But yeah, Scott is a great dude.
It's funny. He had messaged me and was like, I don't know. I'd commented on one of his posts or something. He's like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. You should come out and do Fight Gone Bad with us after Thanksgiving." So I'm like, "All right." So Dave ended up being in town. So I'm like, "Hey, do you care if Dave shows?" He's like, "Absolutely not." So we roll up there. First thing, if you've never been to Mentality, the place is gorgeous, dude. Like, I'll tell you, something that's always interests me about Scott being a games athlete. He always views himself as being a gym owner first and a games athlete second, which is a really interesting mindset for a competitor. And his gym is spotless. I mean, gorgeous, dude. Like, you could eat off the floors. Like, the place is just really, really clean, and the equipment's brand new, and it's just beautiful. And he's been there for a decade.
Yeah.
So kudos to him to just running a really good shop. But I knew we were doing Fight Gone Bad, so I foolishly looked up my previous scores, thinking, all right, well, I probably don't have a good Fight Gone Bad score, and I'll go in there and crush it and set a PR and feel really good about myself. And I go and look, and when I find the post, it was an old Instagram post I'd done on my private page, and it was just a picture of the PR bell from Mentality. Apparently, I'd done it a couple of years ago at Mentality and had PR'd it then. I'm like, damn it, now I gotta actually go hard. Like, I gotta actually work at this. I was just hoping to go in for a number that I knew I could beat, like an old number that I know I'm fitter than, and that was not the case. So I actually had to use some strategy. And
did you beat it?
By a lot, actually.
There you go.
Yeah, my previous score was 311. I scored 349 on this one.
Nice. I admittedly do not know what a good Fight Gone Bad score is, but I'm sure it's great. Good job, John.
Well, for those listening, let's go through it because there isn't a kind of a way to scale it or a way to game it. If anyone comes up against Fight Gone Bad, we can give them the tip. So it's basically it's 3 rounds. You get 1 minute at each station. So there's 5 stations, and you'll have 1 minute of rest in between rounds. First station, if I can remember these in the right order. First one is wall balls. So typical wall ball, 20 pounds for men, 14 for women, to a 10-foot or a 9-foot target, respectively. When you finish that minute, you move to, see, I've already forgot the second movement. I want to say it was sumo deadlifts is the second one, 75 pounds. So you have a 1 minute to do as many sumo deadlifts as you can.
Sumo deadlift high pulls, right?
High pulls, yep. God, I wish there was no high pull. It'd be so much easier. My score would be so much higher. Then the third movement is box jumps, a 20-inch box jump, which is interesting. So for the men, I think it's 18 for the women. Fourth movement is push press. Again, 75 pounds. Fifth movement is calorie row. You get a 1 minute break. So the real trick is like being able to lean in on the areas that you know you can do well, and then try to recover in the areas you're not going to do as well. So gain as many points as you can. For most people, they're not going to like step forward. You push 75 pounds for the after you can rattle off push press at 75 pounds really quick. You can't rattle off 5 calories on a rower really quick without gassing yourself. So the reality is, if you got to choose at those movements, like take the push press all the way to the full minute and get on the rower late if you have to, because you have 1 minute rest at the end of the row anyway, and you can row right up to the end of the minute and still get as many points as possible.
Right. Yeah. Not all reps there are created equal. It's like where are the reps that you can accumulate them quicker? Those are the minutes you really, really, really need to maximize. And then, like you said, the slower rep count movements are ones that, I mean, you don't necessarily need to burn out as much. Like if you don't row that hard and you save energy for all the other movements, you'll be pretty fast, or you'll get a good score.
Yeah, and so that was the exact mindset I went to, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do kind of max rep wall balls as much as I can, because you can get a lot of points there. I'll try to maintain kind of an even pace on the sumos because it's not a good movement for me, and I'll recover on the box jumps because there's only so fast you can go, and I'm not going to rebound. Just not worth it. But I'll get as many points as I can on the push press, and I'm actually a pretty good rower, so I'm going to try to get a full minute on the row, which I did. And it worked. You know, if I could do it over, I probably would have gone a little longer in the push presses and picked up a few extra points and maybe pull back on the row a little. But
yeah, for me, push press is clearly where you get all the points. Like that. I mean,
yeah,
the push, if you put the bar down there in the push press, I'd rather see someone rest for 15 minutes on the rower. Like, if every rep is created equal, then maximizing the push press, because the cycle time on that is so fast. Same with the 20-inch box jumps, so fast. And then you have a few slower movements in there.
Right. Yeah, it's a fun workout. It'll exhaust you though. It's kind of like Fran. It's weird that way. And like, you know, it's only 15 minutes worth of work, and you have, you know, built-in rest time. And then when it's over, like the longer you're away from it, the more tired you get. You know, like you get that about 10 minutes afterwards, man, I was just done. And I mean, done. I couldn't do anything. I just had to go home and lay on the couch. I was just, you know, and it was only 15 minutes. Like, it's just exhausting. I don't know what's different about, you know, putting those movements together that just crushes. Do you have any sense of why that is? Is that a central nervous thing, or any guesses? Because I have no clue.
I think all it is like when you have a really, really high intensity period, your body won't necessarily catch up to that exhaustion until a little bit after the effort is done. And with Fight Gone Bad, like, I mean, there's probably a couple instances of that, but like you're going as hard as you can, very, very fast. So you don't necessarily have time to feel tired. It's like similar to Fran, it's like Fran takes you, let's say 3-4 minutes, you know, you don't necessarily feel the tiredness in that 3 to 4 minutes, but right afterwards you start to decline rapidly. Same thing if you did like an assault bike sprint. If I said, do 30 seconds as hard as you possibly can on an assault bike, By second 20, you're still fine because you're still in the zone. Your body hasn't caught up to the fact that you are in major pain. And then,
Right.
a couple minutes after that effort, you're lying on the floor exhausted, like trying not to vomit. So it's like, I don't know the specific science behind it. I just know that with extremely high intensity, short bursts of energy, normally you don't feel it, quote unquote, until, a significant time has passed.
Yeah, it's an interesting feeling doing that one in a class because everybody's doing the same movements, same stations, and it's all. I mean, I guess you could consider, every movement's an AMRAP, so you really
Hmm.
have no idea where everybody else is, whether you're
Nope.
beating them or not. Mentally, it's a very hard workout because you're only competing. It's the one true one where you're only competing against yourself
Well,
until you can see everybody else's scores, of course.
if you're stalking, you definitely can't really tell on the row, but hey, if someone drops the wall ball and I keep going, right, you can kind of do the math there, and then same thing with the barbell. If you put the barbell down and rest, then you can rack up reps on people. But if you're in a gym or if you're working out with people and you are putting the barbell down, picking it back up, and you're having to take breaks in these 1 minute sets, then yeah, it's very difficult to game because you don't know where people are because it's just a bunch of AMRAPs.
You make an interesting point. We should talk about that because I was talking to my coaches about this, and with the Open coming up, we're likely to see some of these movements. Like these are very popular movements that show up in the Open, wall balls being one of them. And I mentioned to my coaches how proud I was of myself when it was over. Like I always go back after a workout and look at my score and see where could I have scored better. Did I have flubs? Did I, what did I do that was good? What was bad? And the thing I was telling them that I was proud of is in the wall ball section, I would hear wall balls dropping around me and I'd still be going, and so I knew I was picking up points, even though I couldn't see anybody else's points. And it's a really interesting cue to think about when you're, in a competitive situation of knowing how you're doing and trying to measure that against your own ability to continue to give output. Because there's obviously a balance where you can keep going and listen to those wall balls dropping all day long until you're just exhausted and then you can't do anything,
Yeah.
Um, do you ever do that? Do you like listen for other people's barbells or do you only plan out your own
Oh yeah.
limits?
Every time I go to the gym, I'm trying to beat everybody. It's definitely it's something that is probably it's more of a problem than it is, a
You think?
strategy.
Is it a
Um,
problem?
it can be for me because I sometimes will put forth effort that like for instance, I just spent 6 or 7 days essentially just sitting around because this style of hunting that I did last week wasn't necessarily highly intense. It was a lot of waiting, not as much walking and hiking. So I know that when I go back to the gym, I'm gonna like if I go 100%, I'm gonna be really freaking sore on the back end. But all it takes is for like one or two other people in the class to be like right with me in a metcon or in a strength portion, and I'm like I have to win, and it's just like it's ingrained in me. So rather than being smart and being like, hey, I'll ease back into things, I'm not going to push it too hard. There's definitely some times where I come back after sitting on the bench for a while and I immediately think that I can, beat everyone. So for me, I think that that innate competitive nature isn't always beneficial, but it's one of the reasons why CrossFit is so effective in terms of a training methodology is because when people go to the gym to Planet Fitness and they do back and biceps and elliptical machine or whatever, there's no measurement against other people. They kind of are just looking around, trying not to look silly, and you
Oh,
know,
there's the pose measurement where you have to get in front of the mirror and give one of these. Like
right, trying not
can't
to talk to people with
I can't
headphones
even do it like
in, like.
pretending to do it. Like trying to
But in a
flex. I got no
CrossFit
flex.
gym, you have this social element of people who are like everyone's doing the same workout. There's the same time domain, the same RX
Right.
standards, so it makes it a beautiful situation where people are like, whoa, like if that person's going that fast, I can do this. And it just, that competition is what makes CrossFit great. So it's one of those double-edged swords, I think.
Well, forget where you're at currently. Well, I guess what I'm asking is, so let's imagine you're going in to do a workout and it's you're in a competitive quad, other people in the room, and whatever the barbell movement is, It's irrelevant. But you've decided your rep scheme going in. All right. And let's just say, for the sake of this argument, you're going to do 2 sets of 5s, and you got to do 10 in a row. And you do your first set of 5, but you haven't heard other barbells dropping yet. Other people are doing sets of 10. Will you change your rep scheme mid-wad, even though you went in with a plan, or will you stick your plan out to see if it is going to work?
I almost always stick to my plan because for the most part, I I am someone who, for the most part, I'm someone who has a much better grasp on how to get the best score in the workout compared to a lot of people, to be quite honest. And then a lot of times I realize, especially in workouts with a heavy barbell, a lot of people will come out of the gate way too hot, and I'm very good at controlling my effort so that I don't burn out too much. So unless it's a workout, unless it's like a really fast workout, and I'm like, oh snap, other people are holding on, I need to hold on too. For the most part, I'm going to ignore everyone, especially in the earlier rounds, and I'm going to stick to my rep scheme. And in that example, I would always do 6 and 4. I would never do 5 and 5 ever. I never split
Well,
them.
it was a hypothetical scenario, Ben. It wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, well, hypothetically, I wouldn't do
I
it.
agree with you. I wouldn't. I also would not do 5 and 5. I was just throwing it out there. I was guilty of that in the early days of following the crowd. Oh my God, everybody else is dropping, I should be dropping, or no one's dropping, I shouldn't be dropping.
Yeah,
Um, the harder place for me was never barbell movements. It was always like gymnastics movements, handstand push-ups, pull-ups, toes to bar, because the people that are really good at gymnastics can do huge numbers in those things, particularly like toes to bars, the one that's really a big deal early on. I mean, we talked about this a few episodes ago where I've made that mistake recently, thinking I could hold on to a set of 20, which I could for one set, and then
right.
your world falls apart.
Yeah.
So I think there's certainly something to be said for like doing these workouts and seeing what rep schemes you can do, and then logging that information so you know what you should come up with when the open comes around. You don't make that mistake live head to head, because the open makes people do dumb shit all the time.
Mhm.
Dumb choices right on the spot. Like, I've
Oh
made
yeah.
so many dumb on the spot choices in the open. I could
I have
write a
an
book about
example actually, because since you mentioned toes to bar, is I remember I was judging someone in Japan, um, on an open workout from a couple of years, or I guess at this point, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And the workout had, I think, sets of 15 toes to bar or something like that. I forget the exact workout because I've had so many open workouts, but it was a
it.
cleans and double unders and stuff like that. And the athlete was like, I was asking her, I'm like, hey, how many toes to bar can you do? And she's like, most I've ever done is 10. And I was like, all right, yeah, I made this suggestion in my video, but like, I would really suggest doing singles for your toes to bar. She's like, okay, all right, singles for the toes to bar. Got it. 3, 2, 1, go. Unbroken toes to bar. Right. I think it was a set of 15 or 20 or something like that, but or 30 maybe, just unbroken. She
Right.
did them all unbroken. Like, was doing a couple swings in between each rep. And I'm like, like, well, this is not going to fare well. And then sure
Yeah.
enough, when she got back to the second round, it was like, couldn't even do singles. Just wheels totally fell off the bus. And then after the workout, I was like, hey, what happened? And she's like, I don't know. I started doing one and I just got all wrapped up and I didn't stop. And it's just crazy how quickly people's plans fall apart unless you're like prepared for it.
What do you think people should do to prepare? If you're preparing for the open between now and when this thing happens in February, what are 1 or 2 things people could do to start training what you're describing? Like, how would you do it? Would you use a book and track it? Would you? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't track. I don't use a book. I'm not saying it doesn't work for other people, but all you need to be doing to prepare for the open is, at this point, we're starting to introduce like mixed modality training. Like, honestly, starting in like a month from now, you want to probably be practicing lots of CrossFit Open style workouts, because they're the kinds of workouts that we can expect to see in the CrossFit Open, right? And making sure that you cover a litany of workouts from weaknesses into wheelhouse movements, and just making sure that you're comfortable, especially with a lot of the typical pairings, like thrusters and pull-ups and like deadlifts, box jumps, like all these like kind of things that we've seen a lot of. Like rowing and wall balls tends to be a combination we see. So notice those pairings and combinations, and then start to practice them. And then I think the best way to practice not blowing up in open style workouts is to do open style workouts. And I would just like, if you're going to track anything, I would just kind of compare your score with previous efforts that you've done on those kinds of workouts. In terms of like, what would I be tracking from now until the open? Personally, I wouldn't be tracking anything. But that's not to say it's like the wrong answer. It's just at this point in the season, if you're following really good programming, we should be transitioning out of like the strength. I mean, obviously the strength phase is done now. You should have already built a lot of strength. You should have done, gymnastics, volume accumulation. Basically, you should be good at all of the things in individual parts. And now is when we start to really do more CrossFit style training. And even I saw some posts that Matt Frazier had a while ago, and he does the exact same thing. He does a lot of single movement things basically the entire season up until we get closer to the games for him, but the Open for us. Whatever your final playoffs are, that's when you start, a couple months out from that, start to do workouts that look like the event that you should be preparing for. So that's when we're doing the more CrossFit-y style stuff. And I understand most people's training isn't like that. Most people just do CrossFit all year round, and that's great. It'll make you better at CrossFit. It's not necessarily the most optimal thing, but it will make you better at CrossFit. We're early enough before the Open right now where you probably could do a round of open style workouts, like maybe do an open workout the next few Fridays, and then in, let's say, late January, do those same 3 workouts 3 Fridays in a row or something like that, and compare your scores. Ideally, we want to start to see you getting better and more efficient, because when it comes to getting a great score in the Open and in these open workouts, it's not just can you do the movements, it's can you do the movements with a plan, minimize transition times, and not blow up. And if you can do that and kind of expose yourself to these kind of scenarios, it's really good. And then the last idea I'll throw out there is, I think one of the reasons people are very underprepared for the Open is because they're not prepared for the pressure. They're not ready to have a judge. They're not ready to do it in front of a crowd. Like, how many people work out in front of an actual crowd that's just watching them work out? Not many of us. So you could hypothetically organize some more open style workouts, like with friends, where you guys are judging each other, or you're doing it in like a throwdown scenario where you realize like there's eyes on you, and you're trying to all compete against each other and get the best score. But I think it's a very difficult thing to prepare for Friday Night Lights in the Open. But if you can do the little things to simulate that amount of pressure, then maybe you won't do 15 unbroken toes apart when the goal was to do singles.
I love that last tip about doing simulated coaching, judging. It's been a pet peeve of mine for the last few weeks of all this online beating people up for bad reps. Whether they're professional athletes or even non-professional athletes, just it's like there seems to be like a movement in CrossFit where people just love to call other people out, and then their very favorite phrase is, "Well, that doesn't happen at my gym. We always have good movement at my gym." And I'm going to tell everyone that's ever going to watch this show that's complete and utter bullshit. Every CrossFit gym on the planet has people making movements that aren't standard. Everyone, for a variety of reasons. It doesn't make it a bad thing necessarily. It just means that, the main culprit of that is you have typically 1 or 2 coaches to class max and far more students than you do of coaches. And so you can't physically go around and no rep everyone. You just don't have the time. And so when the Open shows up, it exposes a lot of weaknesses in people. And so I think that tip of getting your buddy to come call you out and not give you a bro rep is a pretty good one,
Yeah. Another, like, on that note, it's like I understand the need or the desire to call competitive, like high level competitive athletes out
Sure. Yeah.
on movement standards when it comes to qualifying for competitions that are going to prevent other people from achieving their dreams. It's like when you step up to the plate in a professional environment and then you're like skirting the standards in order to make it to the next level, then yeah, like that's bullshit. You should be called out on those reps and there's ways to do it tactfully and there's ways to do it, terribly. And there's obviously some athletes who have blatantly like skirted the rules and used cameras that look like they're shot through potatoes.
Right.
Like we've all seen the shenanigans of some of the athletes who have made it to the games. But when it comes to like I'm thinking of like my aunt. Like my aunt, one of my aunts, I have a couple aunts that go to my CrossFit gym that I originally founded and have since sold, and it's been sold a couple times now. And when she steps up to do CrossFit Open workout 22.1, and let's say there's wall balls in it, if her judge no reps her, my 64-year-old aunt, for not getting full depth on her wall balls, and like that's not helping, right? It doesn't help anyone. And I've seen plenty of gyms where you have the athlete where you're just like, hey, we're just glad you're here. So
Right.
every single one of those reps, no matter how many times we've explained that you can't bend your knees, or you can't have your knees bent on the lockout of a push press. Okay, no matter how many times we explain that, hey, you're here, and those are good reps for you, and we're going to count them, right? I think that's totally fine for a very large majority of athletes they're not there to compete. They've been just told that they should compete by their gym owner. They're there to have fun. I think bringing a bunch of no reps into their life and telling them that nope, sorry, you can't do this. Like these wall balls at 64 years old, they're just not going to cut it.
Right.
Right. I very much think there's a delicate balance here. Some people absolutely deserve to be called out on their reps because they know better,
Sure.
right? And they
Yeah.
deserve to be slapped on the wrist. But then there's an overall majority of athletes. It's like, hey, we're happy you're here, and let's have some fun and compete.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not advocating trying to take a shortcut on reps either. Like I think my point is you should have someone else watch you for one each video. Like coach, CrossFit kickball. I don't even remember the workout was, but and I saw the camera. I hate that moment, by the way. Those guys are they're walking around the camera, and you do a video. There's nothing you can do about it. Workout, right? Well, go see them. Like, so later, and I look at them, I don't think, and I knew I was being videoed, so I was like I was trying to get below parallel, like I was working it, and you see the video, and you're like, all right, well, I guess I got to work on that,
Yeah.
and figure out why. And I think that's why it's important, though, like you'd rather be right and make sure you know what you're doing, particularly going into the open, because there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than getting a no rep in the open, man. That's mentally debilitating. And, kind of back to the point of why it's important to have someone watching you. You were talking about making those mental errors or being mentally tough. Like that's something you'll be practicing. If your buddy's going no rep and, you're trying to do 50 wall balls and now you're like, God damn it. Now I got to do another rep.
Yeah.
Like you'd rather do it in practice than the open. Trust me. Cause I've had plenty of opens where I had a coach once called no rep 4 times in a row. And I mean, it just blew up my entire workout. Like mentally I
Yeah.
was done. I wasn't prepared for that moment.
I mean, I've seen games athletes crumble with no reps, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've all seen it. So that is absolutely something to prepare for. I mean, heck, if you're like I personally have really enjoyed no repping myself for any movement that's even remotely like, man, I don't know about that one. Like I'll no rep myself. Like there was a workout the other day, I forget the specifics of it, but I was going head to head with a couple people in the gym and they were crushing it. And I was like, I know I can keep up and I can probably pass them and beat them. But there was one round where like I miscounted and I know that I miscounted and I like ended on the wrong hand and like started my box jumps. And I was just like, nope, that's wrong. So like I stopped, backtracked, went back to that dumbbell, did like 2 more snatches or 3 or something like that just to make sure I had my reps covered. Might have done an extra 2, I don't know. And then started from the beginning on the box jumps. And it was like, and then they did both, they all passed me.
Right.
But I really, really have tried to notice, and it's a very difficult thing to do, but notice when I say, good enough. Because anytime I'm saying, good enough, it's not helping me at all. It's only going to hurt me in the future. So lately I've been like, not good enough. No rep, do it again, or like try it again. And that has helped me really focus on like having high quality movement. Because for anyone listening that's like trying to get good open scores, high quality movement is
Mhm.
absolutely key to making sure that your scores actually stand the scrutiny that they might deserve if you're trying to, beat everyone in the gym or qualify for the next level. Then you need to make sure that your training can stand up to the actual open standards.
That's another really, really good point you bring up though, Ben, about, you're in the workout, you did your reps, you go to the box jumps, and you think, oh, I might have forgotten a couple, so I got to go back. Now, if that was an intentional thought by you, so
Mhm.
imagine how many times then where you actually didn't do enough reps and didn't realize it.
So much.
All of us,
On
like, my
Instagram the
dude.
other day, I posted something like it was terrible. Like it was like some DT thing that I did at CrossFit Coda competition class, and I filmed one round, and I filmed the one round, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, nope, I didn't do enough deadlifts. I'm pretty sure I did one extra push press. Like I don't think I did enough hang power cleans. Like what the who? How bad am I at
Right?
counting?
WOD math
Um,
is hard, dude. It's really hard. So imagine like how often that happens.
yeah.
That's why you need a buddy there counting for you. Double unders are the worst.
Oh,
They are the
those are easy
worst.
for me. Those are so easy.
Oh, no, that I always find them to be the worst. Like, first of all, you don't ever count the first one. Come on, like you give yourself credit for the first one, even though you go under twice. And the same for the last one. When I hit the front of your feet, it still counts. Like that's the way most people think. And if you trip a couple of times, now you're picking up a couple extra reps too. Like that's normal, I think, for most people in a workout. Just being honest, it probably is. Maybe I'm full of shit, but I think it probably is. The point, and
Well,
it
it's probably
unintentionally
you're probably full
normal.
of shit, and it probably is. So it's probably both.
Well, look, I just mean it's unintentionally normal. And so my point is when you get into the open and you have someone there counting your double unders and you got to go to 50, it's a true 50, not the not
Yeah,
the 42 you've been doing.
yeah,
You
and
know?
I would argue there's a lot of, I mean, judge it. People who judge double unders are like I remember an open workout, and of course I videoed it too, but it was actually from a couple years ago, I think, or maybe even last year. Wherever the one, no, not last year, the one before. And I videoed it, and it was actually my ex-wife, I think, counting my double unders. And I'd get to the rep, I'd get to whatever how many reps we were supposed to do, and I'd look at her and be like, "I'm done now," and I'm just still going. And
Right.
then she'd be like, "No, you're not. Now you're done." And then I showed her the video, and she made me do like 10 extra reps every single round. And I'm like, "You really kind of killed my score
Mm,
here."
yeah. Now we all know why you're single again.
And now she's my ex-wife. No, I'm just kidding.
What movements do you think are going to come up in this year's open that we either haven't seen or that maybe we'll get a repeat of this year based on, this is year 2 for Boz.
All right, I'd say let's maybe focus on because in terms of, we'll start with the easy stuff. Stuff we're going to see again are most likely all of the ones that we've seen in the past. And of course, we have an article about this somewhere on the internet. If you just do like WOD Prep Open movements, we actually statistically break down like how many opens have various movements been a part of. So like double unders, 100%, I'm pretty sure. I think deadlifts, in terms of skills, there's going to be chest to bar pull ups for sure, toes to bar for sure. Like there will be all of the normal stuff. Okay. They're like very rarely is like a cornerstone movement left out of the open, like cleans or some sort of snatch or overhead squat. Like it's kind of rare that they're left out. Now, granted, there's only 3 weeks worth of the open. There's less chance that all of them will be in there compared to when it was 5 weeks. I think movements that we will probably see again that haven't necessarily been commonplace, I would not be surprised if wall walks are in the open again, simply because It's a very, very easy movement to judge, and it's a difficult movement to do, but it's also highly scalable. I love it as an open movement. So I think wall walks will be in the open again. In terms of other movements that are potentially rare and haven't showed up, I mean, pistols, it's a disaster to judge, but I think like we've seen in a couple years past now, adding like as you get deeper into the workout, making the skills harder is something that we saw at the final workout of last year. Because what did it do? It started with I think it started with chin over bar pull ups, and then it was chest to bar, and then bar
Yep.
muscle ups. I think we're going to see maybe some more workouts like that, where the deeper you get into the workout, the more difficult a movement is. So potentially, we could see a workout that has like you know air squats, overhead squats or something like that, and then pistols, or some sort of progression where the movements are getting more difficult. Could have again, we've had a workout where it was like I think it had maybe kipping handstand push-ups. So we might see like kipping handstand push-ups, strict handstand push-ups, handstand walks, like that kind of like progressive difficulty in movement. Um, so that's kind of all I have. I know I was predicting I was calling bar muscle ups for a couple years there, and then they finally showed up. I was calling pistols for a couple years, and then they showed up. Handstand walks, and then they showed up. I'm not necessarily sure what is going to show up this year that's brand new. Devil's press, probably single arm devil's press, would be one that I think they might throw into the thing because we've never seen a devil's press,
Yep.
whether that's a double dumbbell or a single dumbbell. But I think that could be one that makes an appearance.
I think now that the judging is done in the affiliates, in years past, anyone could get or at least last year, anybody could get pass the judges course and judge people off site. And now you have to be judged on site.
Did they move back to being on site?
Yep, which is great for the affiliates, my opinion.
They're hopping back and forth.
Well, but here's the point, though. Yeah, it's great for the affiliates.
Yeah,
for
I like
sure.
it. I like it.
I think you'd be dumb to not be working on rowing because now that it's back in the affiliates, it puts the rowers in play. And that's why it wouldn't have been in place if you could do it offsite because not everybody owned a rower, if you're making it more accessible. But if you have to do it on site, rowers are in play. So work on your cardio. I think you're smart about the wall walks. I think we'll see those again. 3 years in a row makes sense to me to give you some real data as to how much better people got at it. The one movement I think we could possibly see that we've never seen in the open, but could show up because they've been teasing it and doing it in other events is wall facing handstand push-ups.
Sure. Yep. That could be like one of those, where it's like traditional handstand push-ups, wall facing handstand push-ups, and then a handstand walk.
Yeah.
I think that could be thrown in.
Yeah. You do traditional where you can kip, second one strict or at a deficit. Third one's wall facing, like something, it could be any of those, but it would not shock me to see wall facing. And admittedly, I've not even tried one. So I'm saying it out loud. I probably need to go practice them at some
I
point.
wouldn't be surprised if we see single unders either. Like, like seeing how poorly the athletes performed on single unders was hilarious.
Yeah.
Here's a big tip for everyone. And obviously we share this in our new Double Under Pro course, but if you're trying to go really fast in single unders, do alternating steps. Do not do just double footed steps. Do alternating, like running in place steps. You can go like 3 times faster. So there's a Waterpalooza pro tip. And then I wouldn't be surprised if maybe something like a double under crossover or just a crossover is thrown in there. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I could see an open workout again where you have this progression of skills where it's like first round single unders. My God, everyone would be so excited because they could RX it, right? Everyone would be so happy. And then maybe the next round is double unders. And then maybe the next round is double under crossovers or triple unders or something like along those lines. So I really think that we're going to see at least one of the 3 workouts will have some sort of progression of skills and load.
See, I wasn't having any open anxiety until now, but now that you're mentioning all these movements I haven't been working on, I'm starting to feel stressed. We did see in the open a few years ago when it was a 5-week open. I think it was during the 5-week open. They did handstand walks, and we've not done those in a few years.
Hmm.
Also something I've not been working on that I can't do
Yeah,
them anyway.
I think last year. I mean, I guess last year maybe still due to COVID, they were like prioritizing being able to do
Yeah.
most things in a confined
Yep.
space, like I think a home gym. But if we're moving to the affiliate, kind of promoting the affiliate thing, then maybe they will open back up the 25-foot floor space distance thing. And if they do that, then handstand walks, overhead lunges, all back on the table.
Yeah, I always struggle. Like, I'm not going to tell Boz or anybody else how to program the open. I personally just always want to see the open as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And I always hate that feeling for, newer CrossFitters. They get to, they pay $20 for 3 weeks. And in week 3, there's a movement they can't do at all. And I
Mhm.
understand the concept that we'll just get better, work harder, blah, blah, blah. But I think it keeps people from wanting to sign up the next year. I'd like to see the open as accessible as possible, and then make quarterfinals as hard as you want.
I,
You know,
I I agree for the most part. I think, I mean, the quarterfinals is where they do pull out all the stops. And I just conveniently just barely missed it last year. It was pretty sweet. And I had no pressure to do the workouts, and I just went snowboarding instead. It was fantastic.
nice.
But I think both equipment and skill level. I think equipment might be even more of a limiting factor than skill level and abilities, right? Like, so if they first open workout of the year they do something that has rowing in it, it's like, well, shoot, there goes everyone's chance who was going to try to play around in the open, that do a lot of their stuff in the garage gym. If they haven't purchased a rower yet, then they're
Right.
kind of screwed, right? So I loved the last year was, double unders and wall walks. It's a great start for the open, although admittedly the double unders kicked a lot of people in the butt.
Yep.
So again, I hope that Boz has some sort of progression in the workouts. But if not, then scaling is okay, right? People can scale down, and that's why there is a scale division. So, and that's actually why there was like a foundations division, right? There was
Mhm.
one that was like even
Yep.
more beginner, and you could use like household objects to do that. So, they have made it really accessible. So hopefully that trend continues.
Well, one thing's certain about Boz is he's a traditionalist, a traditional CrossFitter, and you even saw it in the games when they're doing pirouettes. Like, he does stuff that has been around in CrossFit for decades. And so I think we'll get I hope, but I also think we'll get a very traditional CrossFit Open. Not a lot of crazy stuff. You might see something new, but it won't be nuts. Last couple of questions. First one's just for you, Ben. Did you get signed up for the Gauntlet, Waterpalooza?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Savannah is doing that. She texted me right before we started,
She's not doing it. She's not. She texted me too. She just wanted to make sure we were doing it at the same time. She's got some event on Sunday.
and that's what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure she just registered for me because she's like, they're on sale. Do you want me just, because she has access to the company credit cards? And I'm like, yeah, just do it. So I think,
Nice.
yes, I think I am registered, which is terrifying because like, you are like dialed, your nutrition, you're like focused, you're doing gauntlet style workouts. I am like not any of that. But it's good. It's like the fact that there's a little bit of pressure now. I'm like, oh man, I need to start training more. So
Well,
this is,
first of all, you and I are going to be in different divisions, so it isn't going to matter.
yeah, it'll still matter though. I mean, there's still gonna be certain elements of the divisions that I'm sure are exactly the same because it's
Hmm.
very scalable. And I fully, when there's rowing or wall balls or bike, then I'll just let you win, and that's fine.
Okay. Well, for everyone listening, we're going to be doing it Thursday between the hours of 3 and 6. I don't know what our heat times will be yet,
Hopefully,
but
hopefully,
those are the blocks we signed up for.
cool.
And then, assuming either one of us makes the finals, you go again on Sunday. So I don't think there's any chance of that.
I almost made it last year to the
Did
finals,
you?
and then I didn't, and then we just had a great morning the next.
I chose the scale division specifically because when they announced the weights, the heaviest weight announced in the intermediate division was above my 1 rep max for the clean, and I'm like, I want to be like, I don't want to sandbag, but I also want to be competitive. Like, I don't want to go in and not be able to do something, just stand there
What
and stare at the
divisions were
barbell.
there?
Intermediate, scaled, or scaled is the lowest one, or however you want to describe it, easiest, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm in it, so I'm calling it the easiest. Then there's intermediate and the RX or elite division.
There's an elite division.
Whatever, the strongest
RX.
division.
Okay.
You're going to be in the top division. I'm going to be in the
I
bottom
don't know,
division.
dude. Intermediate kind of sounds really nice now that you mention it.
Yeah, well, maybe you should do that. But
Yeah. Well, it'll all be cardio ninjas, and I'll get my butt
what
kicked.
I will say, what I wasn't counting on that was on the list of movements was rope climbs. I
Oh,
wasn't.
cool.
I didn't think there'd be rope climbs, but they were like, "Hey, you got to plan for 12-foot rope climbs in the scale division and 15-foot in the intermediate." And
What else were there? Was there
uh,
anything else that?
they just had listed weights for snatches, clean and jerks, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I was mostly looking when I was choosing divisions. I was mostly looking for their movements I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And if like as an example, if handstand walks were in one of the divisions, I would push myself into a different division because I can't do handstand walks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was
Yes.
kind of my defining moment. And then when I looked at the intermediate, the weights were just too heavy,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and just doesn't make sense to train for an hour workout and have, potentially 2 or 3 of the stations where you're standing there staring at a barbell like a dumbass. Like it's not the point of it. So
Sure.
we'll see. Should be fun though. I'm excited.
Well, I'm sure you're gonna crush it, and now I have looming pressure ahead to make sure I don't embarrass myself. So I guess I need to start stepping up and training more.
I don't know if I'll crush it. I just want to be the best I can be. Whether I do well or not, I don't know. I just want to be the best I can be. But where I am going to be crushing it is the after party or the cocktail party we're going to throw over at Downtown Strength on Saturday night. I don't have the time yet. I'm waiting for them to tell me when we can have it.
Wait, who's
But
throwing that? Are we throwing that?
no, it's me and Nikki, but you're invited because we love you.
All right, it's
So
my party too. I'm inviting so many people.
that's fine. That's fine. They're going to have to register. So once I get the registration link together, we're going to release it to everyone. And because there's only so much space in this gym.
Cool.
But it'll be fun. And your girl Danny's going to be there. Danny Spiegel's coming. So
Cool. Well,
be fun.
Danielle Brandon's my girl. Let's be clear here.
Well,
She plays pickleball, so we're destined to become elite level mixed doubles partners. But she
all right. Well,
doesn't know it yet.
I'll invite her too. It'll be
All right.
fun.
Cool.
Last question. We actually had a question that came into the Q&A or came to me via Q&A from Justine, who was on the show last week or 2 weeks ago. She wants to know the best Black Friday purchase you made. Did you make any this year? Did you buy anything?
Ooh, no, because I was hunting all day.
Nothing? You haven't bought anything for the holiday season yet?
I have not bought a single thing. I did start making a Christmas list to send to my family, and I did start considering what I could purchase my family members. So,
well, I'm in the same boat. I haven't made any Black Friday purchases. I did buy a few weeks ago the Apple Watch Elite Ultra. I called it Elite, the Ultra. It's
cool.
awesome. It's so good.
What's the battery life like on it?
36 hours.
Okay.
Which is pretty good for an Apple Watch,
Mhm.
but it charges real quick. Like that was always my problem with the Apple Watches. I thought their battery life sucked, and I didn't really like what they do. But this one's like super heavy duty, so it'll stand up to workouts. Like I don't worry about it in the gym. It has a button on the side that you can program. Like I think they call it an action button, and you can program it to do whatever you want. And so I have it programmed. When I press it, it immediately starts my workout.
Oh, sweet.
Which is cool. So I can track my workouts. And then it does all the same stuff all the other trackers do, sleep tracking, heart rate, all that jazz.
Cool.
And I like it because it'll actually tell you what zone you're in. So like today I did zone 2 training, and it'll tell you exactly when you hit zone 2. And if you're in zone 3, like it'll peg it while you're doing it. So that's kind of a nice feature.
That is exciting. And that was a Black Friday purchase?
No, I got it. And I was too anxious, and I bought it before Black Friday, but I hear they're on sale. I hear you can get them like.
What did you buy on Black Friday? You're doing a terrible job at answering Justin's question.
No, that's what I said. I didn't buy. I was in the same boat as you. I didn't buy anything. I bought this right before Black Friday, and my daughter came to town, and I haven't done much shopping. About the only thing I've bought in the last week or so was cold medicine and alcohol in that order. So
you know what's interesting is like I think I don't let myself get wrapped up in the deals, even though obviously as a company, like we promote some of our best deals. Right. Like right now we're doing a big Cyber Monday deal for our programming, because a lot of people like they really get motivated by this fear of missing out. And for me, I do too. I don't even let myself like really look at all the deals. Like I want to buy myself some like really ridiculously expensive binoculars, and there's a bunch of stuff I want to buy for my family, like all this stuff. And I fully am aware that I will pay full price. And it's going to probably make me spend less because if I get wrapped up right now in like all these deals that are going away, I'll be like, oh my God, a laptop is $800 off. I need a new laptop. Boom.
Right.
And it's just like, for me, it's just like, nah, dude, I'll just pay full price. So it helps,
Well,
helps me buy less, I think.
yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try to. I've spent a lot of money recently, so I'm gonna try not to. I'm gonna try not to spend a lot this year at Christmas if I can help it. Not to mention, I got another semester tuition to pay for my kid. So
Yeah. Well, I
I
did
should.
get Waterpalooza tickets apparently for Cyber Monday. So
Oh, don't get me, dude. Don't get me started on this whole. I'm on. So now I'm all right. Now I'm started. I'm all pissed off at Waterpalooza. A couple weeks ago, they have these tiers.
yeah,
You
yeah.
buy your tickets. Buy your tickets to these tiers. It's the cheapest price. And then on Black Friday, they run a Black Friday sale that's cheaper than what I paid in their early pricing tiers. I'm like, why
Wait,
have early?
really?
Yes. I'm like, how shitty is that? That you have an early pricing tier that you advertise as this is the cheapest price. You have to buy now to get the cheapest price. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, Black Friday rolls around, you run a cheaper price than that.
That's frustrating. That's something that we've never done. We pay very close attention to our verbiage of like whenever we release a course, if it's the lowest it's ever going to be, then we make sure it's the lowest it's ever going to be. That is because the whole
It's
tiered pricing
bullshit is
model
what
works
it
really
is.
well to sell out events, but tiered pricing models and then like, haha, it's Black Friday or it's Cyber Monday.
Oh,
Yikes!
dude, I was so annoyed.
I bet
And
they're
you know,
getting a bunch of support tickets.
and I paid for all this stuff. I paid for my tickets to get in the game to get into Waterpalooza. I paid for the gauntlet. Like I'm not asking for any of this stuff for free. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing any of this stuff because they're patting me on the back and saying, "Hey, come do this. We'll give you free tickets." I'm paying for all of it. So, I mean, man, but if I'm going to do that, don't screw me over on the pricing too. Like this, and they're screwing everybody over on that. It's just dumb,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
So,
John, we need to work on getting media passes so we don't have to wait in line next year or this year.
well,
Like,
ironically, I got a media pass. It's not a media pass. I got a podcast pass. So if we want to do the podcast there, we can. And we would have had free tickets to get in, but nobody told me that until I already bought them at apparently 15% too high. So
dang, dude.
it's all good. It's
Well,
all
make
good.
sure I get the pass too, because I'm pretty sure last time I showed up and mentioned my name, I'm like, oh, I'm with John. They're like, yeah, no, he only put his name down, so you
Yeah.
don't get any.
Yeah. Well, it's because I'm the famous one.
Yeah,
All right. Well, if you want a podcast there, let me know.
yeah.
I can get
Let's do it.
hooked
The
up.
audio was fantastic. It was a great experience.
Apparently, they have a much better stage this year.
Okay.
So they say.
All
You
right.
know.
I'm down.
All right. Anything else with you? Anything else we want to talk about?
I think that's about it. Yeah, I'm home for a few weeks, so I'm excited to actually get some training done. I keep falling into this pattern where, man, like I was planning to work out at 3 p.m. today, and then something popped up. I had someone come try to fix my house heater. So it's just like, I just realized I have to train in the morning or else I just don't train at all. So tomorrow morning, I better get my butt up and hit the gym.
I hear you. I think finding a regular time to train is important.
Yep, it's got
Yeah.
6:30 a.m. I think that's gonna be my sweet spot, and I just need to make it happen. But I also try to always get my eight full hours of sleep, which I've done very well at the last 2 nights. So
Well,
if I can somehow check both of those boxes, that is the key.
there you go. That is the key. All right. Well, do you want me to give you a wake up call tomorrow morning? I'll
Yes,
be up.
please.
I
Yep.
mean, 2 hours earlier here, so I can call you at
Yep. The
eight
only
eight
issue is
thirty
my
my
phone
time.
is never in my room, so I wouldn't get it. But
How do
sure,
you live that way? How do you get up in the middle of the night and check memes and stuff?
I just don't. My
No.
room is literally a bed
Yeah.
and blackout curtains. That's it. And also a bed air conditioner and an air filter and an alarm clock. I have an actual alarm clock that I set outside of my room, and if I get up and get to it, I am not allowed to go back in bed. So
Man, there's way more than I need to know about your bedroom, but thank you for that. That was
yeah, no
good.
problem, man.
All right. Well, guys, thanks to everyone for listening. We'll give you an update on Ben's sleep schedule and his workout schedule next week. Until then, have a great week.